What's up, guys? And so the Sleeping Beauty trilogy ends. I just finished reading Beauty's Release, which was the third in the Sleeping Beauty trilogy, and that was supposed to end the series. So, what did I think of the book? And does it do justice to conclude the story? Alright, so where we left off in the last book of Beauty's Punishment, Beauty and Laurent and some of the other slaves are kidnapped from the village and taken to the Middle East, into the Arab countries. And that's where this book picks up, and they are on a ship on to the Middle East, and they don't know what to expect or what's going to happen to them. But they do know that they're going to go to be in the presence of the Sultan. And the Sultan is who invented this way of torture that has been in this series of domination and submission and your BDSM. The Sultan is the source of that. So they're nervous and scared of what to expect. And are they heading into more hell, or are they going to find heaven? That is the basic story that I don't want to give too much away when it comes to this novel. By the third book in this series, you kind of get into this world that nothing is too shocking. When you first read The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty the first time, you're like, what is this I'm reading? And it's very much X-rated and porn. And you're like, how can these people enjoy what's happening to them? And then the second book happens when they go into the village and they're demeaned. And the third book, so by the time, if you made it to Beauty's Release, then you are pretty much in this world that whatever happens, you pretty much accept. And with that said, I read these books as just to see what exactly new tortures and ecstasies these characters find themselves in. With that said, it has its fair share of interesting and, yeah, interesting is the best word to put it, things that happen. As soon as they get to the Middle East and they get to the Sultan's palace, they see like the doors are covered with naked bodies, and naked men and women are strapped to the every inch of the castle. The columns, the doors have naked people. The story is actually able to carry on when there is a language barrier. Like the captors and Beauty and Laurent and the ones from the Old Kingdom, I'll say, they don't really speak too much. There's a couple of characters in the new country that can speak their language, but for the most part, the story is carried through the perspective of Laurent and Beauty through their eyes, because there's a language barrier, so they don't really get to speak to the new people that much and that often. So I give it to Anne Rice that she's able to have a story where the characters don't, with words, interact with each other too much. And this book had me wondering, how far, not for personal reasons, but I was wondering how far up can you shove a fist up someone's, you know what, before it actually does damage to their internal organs. And that kind of thing is never addressed. There's never any violence in this series. There's no revenge of any kind, because it is like a porno. And you always expect some of these things to get a little bit of payback, and there's no payback that ever comes. But if you're looking for payback or blood or violence, this thing never happens. Now, another interesting thing that happened in this story that is popular nowadays, actually, is that the Sultan, whenever he received the slaves, what he liked to do is take water and jet it into their backside to flush it out. And that's actually really popular for medical reasons. People like to get flushed out and all that stuff. And he was doing it for other reasons back when this book was written. I don't think that was really spoken of too much, to flush out your system like that. But he had his own reasons that are different from why people go to to pay people to do that nowadays. But that was another thing, is that the water filled out their bowels so much that whenever it popped loose, it all came out. So since this is a porn, basically, what did I think of the sex in the book? Finally, it took 3 books, but we finally had a big lesbian scene in the novel. And you'd think that that would have been more focused on, since it's about beauty, that there have been way more lesbian scenes in the novel. But actually, it took to this book to really have something where there's like a big lesbian orgy. And like I said, that's all you can really talk about when it comes to these books, because it is basically a porn. So it always has me questioning how this was ever going to be a TV show, because the best way to ever, and it was spoken of to be a show at one point in time, and I'm sure people are still thinking of ways to make this a TV show, but this is not going to be a show that you'll ever see on AMC. Like the Mayfair Witches and the Vampire Chronicles. This, to do justice to the Sleeping Beauty series, you would have to have it made by a porn company. Pornhub, and you name these independent companies with no disrespect, but because there's no way to get the true feel of the book series, there's no way that a HBO even, or Showtime, or Stars, and there's no way that they could do this and do justice to this book series. To have a cast of characters that have never have a stitch of clothing on and what happens to them. There's just no way. So, what did I think of the story? Did I think that it concluded the trilogy very satisfactory, we'll say? The answer is not really. So, the final book, Beauty's Release, is not even really about Beauty. It's more about the other slave, Laurent. Beauty's barely really in this. And when Beauty's not in it, it goes, like I said, to Laurent. And I'd say that about 75% of the book is Laurent, and then the rest of the book is about Beauty. Did it conclude very to my satisfaction? Like I said, not really. The ending of the book, I don't want to give away, but I'll just say that whenever they were in the Middle East and in the Arab country, that was the most interesting part of the book. And then something happens where they leave. I don't want to say how or why. You'll have to read the book. But when they do leave, it feels like it's just kind of, come on, let's get to the end. It's that kind of thing. Like, it loses all interest for me whenever they go back to the original kingdom, I'll call it. And when they go back to the original kingdom, life goes on like it did in the previous 2 books. So there's nothing new once they are taken from the Arab country, and life goes back to normal, like I said, the last 2 books. And when it comes to the actual ending, it was Beauty asks, or the one she ends up with asks, "Are we gonna live happily ever after?" And she says, "More than people expect." And it has me question, do they know? I want to know what love is. That song by Foreigner, and they seem to love. They say they love each other, but I wonder, by this book, do they understand what love is? So I wasn't really satisfied with the ending. So I see why Anne Rice wrote the 4th book in 2015, which I'll eventually review, called Beauty's Kingdom. I'm wondering if that's going to address anything. What is Beauty going to bring to the old kingdom that she's learned from her time as a slave? It's going to be interesting to see, and I'll review that. But as Beauty's Release, I didn't think it really ended the series to really well at all. So again, I can see why there was a 4th book written to hopefully tie up some loose ends, and we'll just have to wait and see. So when it comes to Beauty's Release, I'd probably give it a 3 out of 5. Again, if you made it this far, you're kind of over the shock of the world and the kind of place that this kingdom is. And I can say that it was a page turner enough whenever they were in the Arab country with the Sultan, but whenever they leave and go back to the Old Kingdom, it kind of slowed down and went into things that were no interest. Um, a lot of chapters about pony play and stuff, and we've already heard all that before in the previous books, so it just felt like a lot of filler. So I would not say that this was a great book at all. So I'd give it nicely a 3 out of 5. It was average. It was okay. And we'll just see what happens in Beauty's Kingdom and go from there. Anyway, guys, I'll talk to you later. Bye.